Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
Yo, it's your boy, the odd guy himself, Malik King Scott.
Hi, I'm Charlie Edwards.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 134 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host Joey Coastman. I'm joined as always by my partner in crime, the co-host himself, Mr. Ayaz Sumra. Ayaz, how you doing?
I'm good, Joe. Yourself?
Very good, my friend. Very good. There's a lot to talk about. There really is. Let's dive straight into the review part of the show. We're going to talk about the fights from last week and last weekend. We're going to start, though, in the Town Hall in Walsall, West Midlands, United Kingdom. A huge upset over here. Let's talk about the main event. Tommy Langford, 20-1. I believe it was his second defence, I think, of the British title here. So if he'd have won, which he didn't, only one more defence would have seen him win the belt outright. But anyway, in the other corner, Jason Welborn, 22-6, managed to carve out a split decision win in his favour. So Tommy Langford loses his British middleweight title here. Langford was also given a count in the second round, and he was cut above his left eye in the third round. So a huge upset there. One thing about that fight, by the way, is that it was a bit of a local kind of beef, if you like. I know that the pair of them are both from West Midlands, so quite a local little rivalry there. But unfortunately for our man Tommy Langford, he certainly is our man. He's been on the show once or twice. I've got a lot of time for him actually. He loses, so very, very gutted for him. It was certainly always going to be a 12-round fight because both men are not really known as punchers, but a bit of an upset there. Certainly in the favour of Jason Welborn. On the undercard, though, Dave Allen returned to the ring. He picked up win number 13. He got 3 losses and 2 draws. It's a shame, really, because obviously on the same night as this, his arch enemy, Lemroy Thomas, also fought, which we will get onto later. So I don't really see why they couldn't get a rematch going. And to be completely honest, Lemroy Thomas would have probably got more attention from the fans fighting Dave Allen again rather than his fight with Joe Joyce. Probably because everyone really likes Dave Allen, so there was probably more interest there. I think certainly on social media, Dave Allen's a much bigger name than Joe Joyce. It sounds kind of crazy, but that is the way it is. Dave Allen actually took on a former opponent of himself in David Howe. That's the guy who's about 6'10", but he doesn't really have much about him at all. Well, anyway, it was a TKO in round 4. Dave Allen, I think, knocked him out before, maybe in the second or third round, so pretty much the same kind of thing there, like a repeat performance for Dave Allen. He's now 13-3 with 2 draws. Unlucky for David Howe, now 14-9. Also on this bill, a little shout out to Kane Baker. He moved to 7-3. It was a points win over Ibra Riaz. Again, Kane Baker is a man that earned my respect for sure when he gave Sanjeev Sahota a real tough night's work. Moving over now though to the StubHub Centre in Carson, California, USA. This fight wasn't televised in the UK. It was very hard to find a stream. I ended up actually Skyping our other host, Ayaz, Mimi Melendez. She actually Skyped me and let me watch the fight off of her iPad, so I was really pleased about that. I managed to watch the main event only. It was Ryan Garcia, 14-0, taking on Jason Velez, 26-4 with 1 draw. It was for the vacant NABF Super Featherweight title and the vacant WBO NABO Super Featherweight title. Velez was cut on his right eye from a legal punch in round 6. It ended up being a unanimous decision in favour of Garcia over the 10-round distance. It was what it was. I mean, the much sharper and crisper boxer was Ryan Garcia. Velez, they did say he was actually working at a chicken restaurant for a while because, he almost quit boxing. So, I suppose it showed really he wasn't quite on Garcia's level. He wasn't as sharp as he was by any stretch of anyone's imagination. It was still a good step up for Garcia, though. He's certainly earning his experience. I like what they're doing with him. No problem no problem from me with that fight at all. I feel that it was a good fight. It was a good time, really, for that fight in his career. And he's still certainly getting used to the pro game. Like I say, he had a real handful, a big BFG handful of amateur fights, Ryan Garcia. So, yeah, credit to him. I like what they're doing. He's not everybody's cup of tea on social media, but it is what it is. Moving down the undercard here, another friend of the show, Gary Spike O'Sullivan, he picked up win number 28 out of 30 contests. Of course, he's got 2 losses. Anyway, he made his opponent, Berlin Abreu, retire after 3 rounds. Abreu was actually deducted a point in the 3rd and final round for losing his mouthpiece, but apparently it looked like he kind of quit. Like I say, my ignorance, I didn't see this fight. If anyone would like to add their bit to it, please let us know. We will also be reaching out to Spike to try and get him on the show once again. He's been on a few times and it's certainly overdue. Moving over now, though, to Tokyo, Japan. One fight to mention over here. Tomoki Kameda, the guy that, of course, lost 2 fights to our very own Jamie McDonnell. No other man has been able to beat him, and including this one here. In the other corner, Daniel Noriaga, 30-11 with 1 draw. Tomoki Kameda won a wide unanimous decision over 10 rounds. He's now 35-2. Moving over now, though, to the O2 Arena, the big card in the UK of the weekend. Let's start with the undercard. A few fights just to run through here that I believe were shown on Facebook Live. I didn't know about that, so I missed all that. But Cody Davies moved to 4-0. It was a TKO in round 1 against Prism Slaw Gorgon. Luke Campbell moved to 18 wins inside his 20 fights. It was a little bit of a keep busy kind of run-out fight, I believe, just to have one more before he takes on Ivan Mendy in that world title eliminator. In the other corner for this one was Troy James, 20-5 with 1 draw. Quite a nice job Luke Campbell did on him, actually, even though, Troy James was only given a couple of days' notice. It was a 5th round TKO for Luke Campbell. Jordan Gill, he moved to win number 20. It was a points win against Carl McDonald. That was a 6-round points win there. Josh Buatsi fought on this card as well. He managed to get a TKO in round 5 against Stefan Cuevas, who was 8-1 with 3 draws. Buatsi moved, like I say, to 6-0. Do you know what? I don't want to be too critical of Buatsi, but he seems to me, Ayaz, and I'm not quite sure if you agree or not, but he seems to me like he's kind of like the Olympian out of all of them that isn't really wetting my taste buds kind of thing. I'm not really overly excited to see him box. I don't know if it's that he doesn't really carry too much power or something like that, but he just doesn't seem to have that kind of flair, that panache that the rest of them have got, like Cordina, like Josh Kelly. Do you agree with me on that, Ayaz, or am I just getting it horribly wrong? A lot of people saying Buatsi's, perhaps the most promising of the lot, but for me, he's not the best to watch.
I'll tell you one thing: he's improving slowly by slowly. Obviously, he's had a couple of fights, but I reckon he's going to be a star in the future.
Well, I certainly hope so. I'm definitely on his bandwagon. Moving up the bill once again here, Lemroy Thomas, 22-4 with 1 draw, took on the juggernaut Joe Joyce in just his 4th professional fight. Thomas was down once in the 1st round and twice in the 2nd round. Boy, oh boy, like I say, a huge step up there for Joe Joyce, and I couldn't believe, really, the way the fight went. I definitely couldn't see it happening early. I think I said on last week's show, well, definitely, me and you, Ayaz, went with a points win for Joe Joyce, even though he hadn't previously been points. But, we gave a lot of credit to Lemroy Thomas, whereas the listeners definitely went with a Joyce knockout. I just didn't see it coming as early as the 2nd round, but the fight itself, Joyce dropped him in round 1 with about 2 or 3 seconds to go in the round. It was a body shot as well, and Joyce was just stalking Lemroy, and Lemroy would stupidly trade with Joyce. I felt that he was doing the wrong thing there straight away, sitting in the pocket and trading with him. I don't know why he was doing that. Lemroy went down again in the second round, like I say, very early in that round, and then he took a knee late in the second round, but he stayed down. And Joyce doesn't seem the most heavy-handed puncher, but he's a volume puncher. He's big, he's strong, and he overwhelms his opponents every time. And he truly is a juggernaut. I mean, he's relentless with his pressure, and he just seemed to completely walk through a tough Lemroy Thomas. And it was a great shot selection once again from Joe Joyce. He goes from head to body very, very well. Lemroy did land a couple of good shots himself in the second and final round, but credit to Joyce for putting his man away that quickly. People forget that Lemroy is an old sparring partner of Anthony Joshua, and he just completely got chewed up and spat out there. And I believe it's some kind of record-breaking win this to pick up the Commonwealth title in just your fourth fight. I don't think that's happened for about 100 years or something bizarre like that. So credit to Joe Joyce, Ayaz. What did you make of his performance, and what did you make of his ring walk when he walked out to the ring with all that Mexican gear on and almost looked like he was trying to get the part in a new Dolmio advert?
I think it's very, very good that he came in Mexican outfit. I think he's improving fight by fight. I think he's improving a lot. Obviously, we've seen him fight. He's been an amateur for a very long time. He's got a very good amateur pedigree background. So he's brought into his experience to the programs, and I like the way his haymaker promotions are doing, the way they're making him go forward. I can see him be a world champion, but not now in the next 3-4 years. Well,
at the rate that they want to move him, I mean, it's 3-4 years. I think he'll certainly get a shot within that time. Whether he ends up winning or not is a different story. Also, you mentioned their haymaker promotions, of course, in association with Ringstar Sports. Did you see, Ayaz, who he's been calling out on Twitter as well? I really, really enjoy, what he does on Twitter. He seems to go after people, and he uses social media really well. But have you seen who he's been calling out the last day or two?
Call out Jarrett Miller. I think that's a very good fight. I think, to be honest, with that fight, if I'm going to go for it, I'll probably have to go for Jarrett Miller win on points. I know that sounds a bit crazy, but the reason is because Jarrett Miller's for bigger name fighters, but I think it would be a very good test for Joe Joyce.
Yeah, I mean, an incredible step up it would be. By the looks of things, Big Baby Miller doesn't really like the fight himself. But then again, Joe Joyce is a guy that, he's very much kind of like, high risk, low reward. So at this stage of his career, who wants to lose to a guy who's only had 4 fights? I mean, is the money going to be big? I'm not quite sure. But if it did happen, that'd be a brilliant fight. Both guys certainly throw a lot of punches for heavyweights, for big guys. So I'd certainly love to see that one. So yeah, the listeners correctly predicted a Joyce knockout. So they went 1 point up there. And me and you, Ayaz, incorrectly predicting a Joyce points win. Moving up the bill, though, John Ryder moved to 26 wins. He's got 4 losses. It was a KO in the second round. He knocked out Jamie Cox, who is now 25-2. Boy, oh boy, I'm going to come to you, Ayaz, first here. Very, very pleased I am for John Ryder. I mean, what a brilliant win for him.
Yes, a very, very brilliant win for John Ryder. A lot of people written John Ryder off. A lot of people were saying that, John Ryder, I think he's finished. Obviously, a lot of people written him off saying that, I think he's done that, but he's improved a lot. And to be honest, I can see him fighting for a world title now. Obviously, John Ryder, he should be getting a lot of credit now. I mean, Jamie Cox is a very good fighter. Obviously, we see the fight. He's come from a heavy knockout from George Groves, and he's been beat again. But well done to John Ryder.
Yeah, I remember you saying last week, Ayaz, that it was a make or break fight for both men. But the fight itself, a very, very good first round for John Ryder. I was really impressed with the way that he came out in the first round. And in the second round, he seemed to catch Cox while he was on the ropes himself. And when he caught Cox on the forehead, it looked like it was his forehead. It didn't look like the temple, which is what I think the commentary team said. It looked like it hit him straight on the forehead. And we saw a delayed reaction. And then Cox's legs just betrayed him, and he went down, and he stayed down to the count of about 9.5, which of course is risky in any situation. And when he did get back up, it was about half a second too late. And the referee waved it off, and rightly so. But while Cox was down, he did nod to his corner almost to reassure them that he was fine. That's why it was really odd that he didn't get up in time. And I mean, I'm just really over the moon for John Ryder, though. Since he's moved up in weight, he seems to be a completely different fighter. And he also, after the fight, said that he was a distance fighter. He said that 6 and 8 rounders were not for him. What a load of rubbish. The last 2 fights have ended before six rounds, and they've been the most important fights of his career, not in terms of the belts, but obviously he's kind of had to fight for his career in the last 2 fights that he's had. Obviously, he's fought for the British title on 3 occasions, but I'm talking about the actual importance of the last 2 fights. They've really been for his career, and back to back as well. He's had 2 fights that have been make or break fights back to back, and he's managed to break both of his opponents down early on as well. So I'm really, really, really pleased for John Ryder. Another man that I will aim to try and get on the show, sometime soon for sure. Moving up the bill once again though, Martin J. Ward, 19-0 with 2 draws. Of course, relinquished the British title after winning it outright. And he took on James Tennyson, a man that was ranked highly, I believe, with the WBA. I think he was maybe number 2 in the WBA rankings. Well, anyway, James Tennyson, 21-2 himself. And this was another huge upset of last weekend. The predictions, though, I went with a points win for Martin J. Ward, Ayaz, and the listeners also went with a points win, but you, Ayaz, went with a Ward knockout, which seemed like it was quite a decent decision when Ward had his man down in the second round from a body shot, but Ward himself was down twice in the 5th and final round, and I couldn't really believe what I'd seen. The fight itself, Ward certainly started very well. He was really sharp, he was very quick, he was using his movement well. He managed to drop Tennyson, like I say, in the second round. With what looked like a body shot initially, it was kind of hard to see the shot that hurt him, but I believe it was a body shot. Tennyson seemed to really go at Ward, though, in the next round. He seemed like he was kind of going for broke, really. And he really piled on the pressure, and I think the size difference seemed to play a part, because Tennyson was the much bigger guy. He looked really big and strong, and he certainly looked like a heavy-handed fighter in there. But credit to Tennyson, because, Martin J. Ward hit him with so many body shots. After he dropped him, he completely went and smashed the body, and Tennyson come back from that. It was a great show opener, because it was the first fight on the telecast, and it was a great way to start the show. But I'm completely gutted for Martin J. Ward, because he loses his O there. He really does lose his O in brutal fashion, and it was a real war. And I think it just didn't click together for him. And Tennyson certainly, he's in the mix now for some big fights. He's the number 2. I think it's the number 2 with the WBA, but I'm not sure. That might be a little bit kind of ahead of itself, being number 2 with the WBA, but he's the new European champion, and he certainly has a lot of doors open for him there. So yeah, he's a great fighter, and he put in a great performance, and he certainly announced himself on the big stage there. So he's now got the Commonwealth title, the EBU European Super Featherweight title, and of course his he had this belt before the fight, but his WBA International Super Featherweight title. So quite a few little pieces of jewellery there. So all the very best to James Tennyson, now 22-2. Martin J. Ward loses his O. He's now 19-1 with 2 draws. Moving up the bill once again, the final undercard fight to mention. Paul Butler versus Emmanuel Rodriguez. Butler, of course, missed the weight. It seemed very unprofessional from him. He was actually 3 pounds over the weight, which is a huge lot, down at bantamweight. He got hit with a double left hook, which dropped him in the first round, Paul Butler. So a really bad start for him, but he did get back up, and he was dropped again. Even though it kind of half looked like a bit of a slip, a shot did land. So it was a big 10-7 round for Rodriguez in the very first round. But from Rodriguez, a man that I hadn't really seen properly before, he was very, very patient in his work. I honestly think that Butler looked really, really small for bantamweight, and, to come in overweight was quite bad from him. But yeah, Butler came out in round 2 and he fought a lot smarter. I think round 3 was more of the same, even though I think he probably lost round 2 and 3. So, the Puerto Rican man was really gaining quite a wide points. He's going towards a wide points win at the time. And yeah, he was just able to really pick Butler off, throughout the fight. I think Butler was was being beaten to the punch repeatedly. Butler just couldn't really get going, and Rodriguez just looked so relaxed in there. He wasn't rushing his work, he was enjoying his work. And the rest of the fight really just went the same. I think Rodriguez has certainly announced himself on the world scene once again. He's a very, very clever boxer, and he's only 25 years of age. He's the new world champion, of course, here. And he didn't even really need to up the gears at any point. He was just so comfortable in there. And, you know, he didn't run out of steam. He was just comfortable for the whole fight. It was like a man that had been around for a long, long time and a multi-world title fight veteran. He just looked so good in there. And he just cruised to a points decision in the end. He completely dominated an ex-world champion in Paul Butler. And I also predicted last week for Rodriguez to win on points. So I was happy about that. I was sad for Butler, of course. I would have liked to see him win. But a very, very classy performance by the new champion of the world, Emmanuel Rodriguez. He remains undefeated, 18-0. He's the IBF World Bantamweight champion now. But yeah, tough luck for Paul Butler now, 26-2. Getting back to the predictions, though, I must say I think we've missed one or two. I went with Ryder to win on points, so did you, Ayaz, and the listeners actually went with Jamie Cox to win on points, which I knew wouldn't happen straight away, but, you know, Ryder, of course, knocked his man out, so no one gained a point there. We talked about the Joe Joyce fight. The Ward one we talked about as well. No one got that one right. No one expected Tennyson to win, let alone win the way he did. And Paul Butler, you went with him to win on points, Ayaz, and the listeners went with him to win on points. Like I say, I went with Rodriguez, so I picked up a point there. And yeah, the main event on this bill, of course, let's just talk about the predictions while I'm on that. I went with a Hay knockout, you went with Bellew on points, Ayaz, and the listeners went with a Hay knockout as well. We all believed Hay once again. We all got it wrong though. No one gained a point there. The fight itself, Ayaz, I'm going to come to you first actually before I break it down. What did you make of David Hay and Tony Bellew?
I think it was a very good fight. Obviously, we thought Hay said in the press conference that he's going to box and move him. Yes, he was boxing and move him. However, he's a 37-year-old boxer. Okay, he was jabbing him. I can see, you can tell some of the punches that he was hurting, hitting Tony Bellew. Yes, it was hurting to Bellew. But obviously, we seen Bellew in the first fight that he fought. When Hay was hitting him, Bellew was still taking him, but Bellew counted him. Obviously, the reason why he's lost the fight, I'll tell you what is. First of all, he's 37 years old. Okay, he's had a lot of injuries in the past, and in my opinion, in that fight, I think he was injured while he was fighting. Obviously, if we saw the David Hay 10 years ago when he fought Anthony McAnally, it would have been a different fight. But once again, Tony Bellew breaking down, and like I said, I personally thought it would be a points. I thought it would be a points because I thought David Hay would have boxed him. But like I said, his age caught him up, and I think it's time for him to retire now.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about what both men should do next, Ayaz, in just a moment. So get thinking about that. But yeah, I think the fight itself. I mean, there was a close. The first two rounds I thought were quite close. I don't think no one really was over-committing at that point. I think Hay was targeting the body with his jabs a lot, which we don't really see from him too often. Hay did start to look a little bit tired in the second round, which I thought, I just thought, oh boy, what's happening here? If I didn't have to give a 10-10 round in the first or second, if I had to go with someone, I'd probably say they were both Hay rounds, to be honest. But yeah, he certainly looks slower than his old self, despite the mini video that we all saw of him sparring Malik Scott. In round 3, that was of course where the drama began. Hay ended up on the ropes and he walked into a right hand. He didn't seem too dazed, but he went down for sure. He didn't really seem too hurt, like I say, and he got back up and he was dropped again in that third round. Once again, it was just kind of walking into shots. He almost seemed like, I don't know, like something was missing from him. He didn't seem hurt though by any of this, any of the shots that hit him. And then, of course, we saw David Hay have some kind of foot injury once again. No one, even to this point, I don't think, knows if it was an ankle injury or any kind of Achilles injury once again. But, something was up with his right foot again. So we just couldn't believe it. I mean, you can believe it because you just never know what to expect from David Haye, unfortunately, at this part of his career. But that was where the injury occurred. I believe it was in the 3rd round, and he came out in round 4, David Haye. And what I will say, to his credit, I felt that he had quite a good round. I mean, he wasn't as injured as he was in the first fight, but he was able to make Bellew miss. And he actually looked okay on his feet in the 4th round. I mean, he was kind of like bouncing up and down when I don't think he needed to. I don't know if he was trying to G his ankle up, or if he had actually somehow got over it. It might have just been a little, sometimes where your ankle kind of hurts for a few seconds, like it's twisted, but really 5 seconds later it's completely fine. I didn't know if that was the case. But yeah, in the 5th round, of course, David Haye came out, and at that point it looked like it was inevitable, really, that Tony Bellew would take over, and Tony Bellew was able to drop David Haye in the 5th. And when David Haye got back up, the referee decided to wave it off. I actually thought it was a little bit premature, to be honest, Ayaz. I mean, I'm not taking nothing away from Bellew. I'm not really taking nothing away from Haye, but the fight didn't really seem to deliver like it did in the last fight. I think with the last fight, the build-up was, very intense, very exciting, but the fight certainly was drama-filled, even if it was a bit annoying with the injury, of course, and no one was really happy with the way it ended. But this fight seemed to have a really good build-up, but I don't think it really delivered. I don't think the fight lived up to the expectations, and we all, aside from you, Ayaz, thought that David Haye would become victorious in this one. Tony Bellew was victorious, but it was by knockout rather than your predicted points win. So, I mean, did you think it was a bit premature, Ayaz, the stoppage, or did you think it was right? What would you have done?
I think it was right, personally. I think David Haye was personally gone. I think his body just broke down once again. Like I said, he's got an injury problem. This is not the David Haye that we seen 10 years ago. I remember when I went to one of David Haye's fight, which is against Derek Chisora at Upton Park. That was a fit and healthy David Haye. Now, if that was that fit and healthy David Haye back then, he would have dominated Bellew completely. But obviously, this is a 37-year-old David Haye. This is not the old David Haye that we know. From the guy that's been beating up Enzo McInerney when he fought Nico Valio, beat him as well. This is a 37-year-old David Haye whose body just completely broke down. Age is one thing. When you're boxing, it obviously gets to you, and that's what happened to David Haye. If it went to 6 or 7 rounds, Haye would have got beaten up. But I think it was personally right to stop the fight.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, I give credit to Tony Bellew. I think that Father Time hits you hard in boxing. I think that Tony, no disrespect to Tony, but I think that he wouldn't have been able to hang with a prime David Haye. But sadly, this is Bellew's prime, really. He's looked so good, the last couple of years, Tony Bellew. This is pretty much his prime, and it's Haye's time. That's what I'd say. So I think Bellew did really well, but yeah, it's not the David Haye of old, and unfortunately, it kind of takes a little bit of the sort of sprinkles off the top of the cake, because he's not the same David Haye of old, and the win is not as big of a win, or the plaudits aren't as big as what they would have been if it was a prime Haye. But David Haye gets stopped once again, and in my opinion, I think David Haye should retire now. I don't really think that he should fight on, but I'm not quite sure that he would want to retire like that. I don't know if he maybe will come back just to knock one more person out and then call it a day, because he was saying in the build-up he just can't look at his record. When he types in David Haye into Google and sees that his last fight he lost by knockout to Tony Bellew, that didn't sit right with him. And I believed him. I truly thought he'd win, but once again he lost, and it was in even less than half the time of the first fight. So, like I say, it didn't really deliver. And David Haye, I mean, is he now all of a sudden happy with the way that fight ended? Is he going to end his career on that one? Because it looks even worse than the first time. There's 2 L's in a row now for David Haye, which has never happened for him before. So I don't know what he's going to do next. So I went on Twitter anyway, and I asked our Twitter followers, not what you want to happen, but what do you think David Haye will want to happen next? Will David Haye retire? Will he have one more fight just to go out on a win? What do you think David Haye will do? And the listeners went with, 84% of the people said they reckon he's going to retire, and 16% went with they reckon he'll have one more fight. So it seems like the general consensus is that David Haye will probably call it a day. I didn't ask the listeners if they want David Haye to call it a day, because I think that a lot of people, including myself, I'm a huge David Haye fan. I think that that's the right thing to do for him. But on the other hand, I wanted to ask people, what should Tony Bellew do next? Should he retire or should he fight on? If it's fight on, then I wanted people to leave their comments below as to who he should fight. Now, 44% of the people went with retire and 56% went with fight on. So, Ayaz, I'm going to ask you quickly, what do you think Tony Bellew should do? Or certainly, what would you do if you were Tony Bellew at this point? Should he fight on again or should he just retire on that?
I wanted one more fight, and the fight I like to see, I know he said Andre Ward, but I'll tell you the fight I want to see. The winner of the World Boxing Super Series between Gassiev and Usyk, which I personally think Usyk will win. I would like to see Usyk versus Bellew, and I think that'd be a cracker.
Yeah, but Ayaz, do you give him a chance in that fight, though?
The way Bellew's going, you can probably... this is boxing, anything happens. Usyk's a dangerous fight, we know that. Bellew's a fight that's improving, which we know already, but that's a fight I'd like to see. If he fought Ward would annihilate him.
I mean, I think a lot of people would probably say the same, that Usyk would probably do the same to him. But yeah, I mean, this is boxing; anything can happen. And you know, I've wrote Tony Bellew off a few times now, and I'm not going to do it again. I think he's certainly got a chance. If anyone's got a chance, he's got a chance with anyone. But anyway, some of the listeners, some of the followers on Twitter wrote underneath and gave their opinion. The people that went with fight on, somebody on Twitter, this is from @theduke79, said that he should fight on and he should fight Andre Ward. Like you said, Ayaz, you think that Andre Ward, well, I don't know if you said that you think it, but you certainly believe a lot of people out there think that Andre Ward would annihilate Tony Bellew, even though he's been out the ring for quite a while and hasn't fought at Cruiserweight yet. But yeah, an interesting one there from the Duke79. Thank you for that. The Boxing Madman sent in, perhaps he should fight Manuel Charr for the WBA regular title. I think that's a fight he could perhaps win, Ayaz. What's your thoughts on that angle?
Yes, that's a fight I think that could happen. But obviously, Manuel Charr is not really a big name. He wants a big name, which is going to get him out. Now,
yeah, but it's for the WBA regular title, isn't it? It's a world title, I suppose.
And again, how much money is he going to get paid for that kind of fight? Bellew's not a Sky Sports fighter no more. He's a Sky Sports box office fighter. He wants the big money.
Sure.
He's coming to the end of his career soon as well. So he wants a big fight. So obviously the big fight that, in my opinion, I'll tell you which could be a big fight, and I can see that. I would like to see that. I wouldn't mind him versus Marius Bradis. I think that's a brilliant fight.
I just don't see his future down at Cruiserweight, because the money's not really there. I mean, this World Boxing Super Series tournament came in with loads and loads of money, but I still don't think it's... I mean, I don't even know how they've really raised this money, because I don't even think the marketing with it has really gone the way they thought it had, or thought it would go, because... I don't even think they nailed down a US broadcaster in the end for TV, so it didn't make any of these European cruiserweights big, in America at all, which I think was probably the ultimate goal. So I don't really know if he's going to go back down there, and I think they're all killers at that weight, really. I think he's probably got more chance, like this guy says here, beating Manuel Charr, winning a WBA regular title. He can then turn around and say, yep, it's a world title. I've won belts at cruiserweight and heavyweight. Not many people have done that. David Hay, of course, did do that. But that is quite a nice route. I like that one from the Boxing Madman. Lewis Shaw, that is @Lewis1999 Shaw, says Dillian Whyte. And I tell you what, Ayaz, I've liked that fight for quite a while. Dillian Whyte and Tony Bellew. Talk to me. Yes,
that's a very good fight. Obviously, the press conference will be funny for that, because obviously we've seen Dillian and Tony Bellew going back and forth on Twitter. But then again, Tony Bellew did say after the fight he doesn't want Dillian. He goes, yes, Dillian Whyte is a good fight, but it's not a very big name fight for him to get up. Like I said, it'll be a good fight, but we'll see what happens when Tony Bellew makes it. But I personally think he'll retire.
Okay, interesting. And finally, from @Ricey_SUFC, he says, I believe that Tony Bellew might as well retire on a high. He loses to Gassiev, he loses to Usyk, he loses to Ward, and he loses to Fury. And I can't see any other name being much of interest or get him the money that he'll want. I think that's a valid point. I think, Ayaz, that he probably should retire on a high. I don't think it gets better than this for him, unless, like I say, the Boxing Madman talking about the WBA regular title. If that can be done, then I certainly give him a shot against Manuel Charr. But up at heavyweight, he's made it clear he doesn't want to fight Anthony Joshua. He doesn't want to fight Deontay Wilder. They're too big. But for some reason, Tyson Fury is not too big. I don't understand that one, even though he's massive. He's 6'9". Obviously, Fury's now with Frank Warren, so that fight will not be happening, no chance whatsoever. That literally leaves a couple of guys, and it's Joseph Parker. I think Joseph Parker would definitely be the favourite there. And then there are the likes of Dillian White and, you know, the rest of the guys there that don't really have the name, Jarrell Miller perhaps. So I think the big fight for Bellew really was the David Haye fights. I think they were jackpot fights for him, and I don't think he should fight on. I think he's risking losing, which, you know, if he gets paid handsomely, then fair enough. But I don't really care about how much money he earns. I'd like him to do well. I'd like him to earn another 50 million. Who cares, you know? But I think if he cares about his legacy, this is the great time to retire. I think it doesn't get better than this, in my honest opinion. But anyway, leaving that bill there, a great win for Tony Bellew. Once again, very pleased for him. But leaving that bill there and moving over now to the StubHub Center in Carson, California, USA. A couple fights to mention on this bill here. Ryan Martin moved to 22-0. It was a unanimous decision over 8 rounds against Breedis Prescott, the man that once upon a time knocked out Amir Khan. They can't help but bring that up every time he steps in the ring. That was like the highlight of his career. Also on the bill, Cecilia Baracus, she moved to 33-0. It was a unanimous decision over 10 2-minute rounds against Callie Reese. This one was for the IBF, WBA, IBO, WBC and WBO World Female welterweight titles. Baracus was actually down herself in round 7 for the first time in her career though, so she didn't have it all her own way. It was an overhand right, by the way, the shot that actually put Baracus down. It was a flash knockdown, to be completely honest. She didn't really seem badly hurt, and I think it was also the following round after that where Baracus got caught once again by a big overhand right, and it troubled her momentarily, but the bell rang. And what I did like about that is Jonathan Banks gave her some great advice in the corner going into the 10th and final round. He said to Cecilia, he goes, "When this girl gets close, grab and hold. Let the referee do his job, then when he breaks you up, use your movement, because this girl's going to go for the knockout now." And it was 100% accurate, because then the camera switched to Reese's corner, again, just a few seconds before the final round starts, and her corner were telling her to let her right hand go. They were saying, let your right hand go. So it was brilliant instructions there from JB, and I'm pleased for him as well, because, you know, him and his girl there, Baracus, got the win, so credit to her. She's the first lady of boxing, as they say, and the pound for pound number 1. And the main event here, of course, Gennady Triple G Golovkin, 38-0 now with 1 draw. He took on Vanes Martirosyan, 36-3 with 1 draw. He's now 36-4 with 1 draw, and he was stopped for the very first time in his career. We do have to say Martirosyan hadn't been in a ring, I think, for almost 2 years, so there is that to take into account. He was also kind of moving up in weight as well. But they tried their best to get the best name opponent, I suppose, in the ring to not disappoint any of Triple G's paying fans that had already paid for flights and hotels. So credit to Tom Loeffler's team and the rest of them for actually going ahead with the fight still, despite Canelo pulling out and really, you know, messing up the plans there. The TV figures were also released as well, and I think it was like the most viewed boxing show on HBO since 2016 or something like that, which was another Golovkin fight back then. So, yeah, credit to the team, man. They deserve it. But the fight itself here, I mean, Vanes had a decent first round, to be honest. I think he threw more shots. I think he was the quicker of the two, and I think he actually landed a couple of eye-catching shots on Golovkin that kind of woke him up a little bit. I think that if I had to give the first round to anyone, it was a close round, but I'd probably give it to Vanes, which I don't think the commentary team agreed with, but that's the way I saw it. In round 2, though, Golovkin pinned Martirosyan on the ropes and hit him with a big right hook, then a double jab, then an overhand right, then a straight right, almost it looked like a jab. I think he went into southpaw stance and threw it as a jab kind of thing. Then he landed a big left hook. Then he landed another straight right hand. Then another left hook to the temple. And then a short right hook to the other temple on the way down. It was 9 or 10 unanswered punches from a man who hits like Golovkin. No wonder Vanes didn't beat the count. He went down. He looked like he was going to get back up, and then he went back down again. And after the fight, he said, "I've never been hit like that. That man hits like a train. So a great win there for Golovkin. Very modest of himself in the post-fight interview, as per usual. Very respectable. The only name that they didn't mention, though, was Billy Joe Saunders' name. They named everyone else. Danny Jacobs, Charlo, all the rest of them. No one wanted to mention Billy Joe, and that is the fight that I believe the boxing world, especially the middleweight fans, are calling out for. Please make the fight happen, Tom Loeffler, if you're listening. But moving over now to the final bill to mention of last weekend. This one happened at the Sport Palace in Uzbekistan. One fight to mention over here, I'm going to really try to pronounce this name properly, but Azizbek Abdugofarov. He fought for the vacant WBC silver super middleweight title against Dmitry Chudanov. That's the guy that lost to Eubank Jr. once upon a time. Very tough guy. And it was a unanimous decision over 12 rounds in favour of Abdugofarov. I think that's how it's said. So Dmitry Chudanov, another loss for him. His record now 21-3 with 2 draws. And the new WBC silver super middleweight champion, Azizbek Abdugofarov. So, the WBC there. So look out. Who's a champion with the WBC at super middleweight? It is the young guy that I can't think of. What's his name? Ayaz, help me out. Benavidez. David Benavidez. I always forget his name. He's been on the show a couple of times. But yeah, so all the very best there to Abdugofarov and Benavidez. Watch out, because this man is coming. Just to quickly go back to the predictions before we bring in our first guest, Ayaz. I went with a Golovkin knockout, so did you, so did the listeners. So last week I gained 2 points, the listeners gained 2 points, and you guys just gained the 1 last week out of 6 predictions. So that means that going on the prediction league now, the listeners have climbed in front of you guys by 1 point. What do you have to say about that, my man?
Oh yes, I'll be there in front of them soon.
Okay, just before we wrap up part 1, there's one last thing to do. You know what that is. It's, of course, to welcome our very first guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the current Commonwealth Cruiserweight champion, Mr. Luke the Duke Watkins. Luke, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Hey, it's my pleasure, my man. It's my pleasure. So, Luke, the fight has now been announced. You will defend your Commonwealth strap against Lawrence Okolie on June 6th at York Hall. Lawrence will also put his WBA Continental Cruiserweight title on the line. So, first things first, how did this fight come about, and how simple or difficult was it to make in the end? It seemed like it was a little bit of a delayed, kind of announcement.
To be fair, it was pretty straightforward, pretty easy. We've seen each other a couple of times at York Hall shows. We spoke about fighting each other, and the time was right. It literally just happened like that. We spoke to Lawrence. Lawrence said he wanted it. I said he wanted it. The only person that we didn't speak to at the time was Eddie Hearn. He was away in America. He had a lot going on with Danny Jacobs, so he was delayed in a bit just to agree everything. We had to check the contract, check everything was right, all the terms. So we had to wait for him to get back from America. But as soon as he was back, he got in touch. We went back and forth. We want this, we want that. They want this, we want that. And that was it, and it was done.
Excellent, excellent. And what do we know about Lawrence Okolie? Obviously, we all know about his Olympic efforts and, the fact that when he turned pro, he was blowing away. Respectable journeyman, I suppose. But in his last fight, we really did learn, in my opinion anyway, that he's got a lot more to his game than just simply being a power puncher.
Absolutely. He doesn't just blast people away. He is technically good. I don't think people have seen what is the best of Lawrence Okolie yet. I believe on the fight, June 6th, myself v him, you will see the best of Lawrence Okolie yet to date.
And you're a man who I've seen fights watching on. It would appear that you like to keep your eye on all the cruiserweights, especially in Britain. Were you able to take anything away from Okolie's fight with Chamberlain? If you were able to, I'm not going to ask you what it was, but were you able to spot any weaknesses in his game that fight at all?
It's not just about looking at his weaknesses. It's about looking at his strengths. It's about looking at what he does well. And again, you are right. I did look at some flaws, but I'm sure he's gone back and looked at his own flaws and thought, right, I need to correct this. I need to correct this. Or, this was working well and this was working well. So, yeah, you can always see things and flaws in fighters. Every fighter has flaws.
And I'm liking what Lawrence Okolie's doing lately. Obviously, you know, his step up in class last time out, you know, the big fight with Isaac at the O2. You've also been fighting in front of lots of viewers on terrestrial TV. But would you recognise this fight as the biggest and perhaps the riskiest fight of your career thus far?
Yeah, it is that. For me, it's a step in the right direction of getting onto the bigger platforms. You know, we know Sky Sports is the home and the heart of British boxing. They have great shows. Everyone tunes into Sky Sports and everyone wants to be on Sky Sports fighting. And I want to be there as well. For Lawrence, I believe one thing I have to admire about Lawrence is he rolls the dice. He's willing to take risks and not fight journeyman. You know, I have to take my hat off and credit Lawrence for that.
And I'm going to be honest with you, Luke. I have labelled you in the past as a bit of a slow starter, particularly in your last two fights. You seem to start off quite slow and maybe even lose some of the early rounds, but you did, on both occasions, put your opponents away late on. And I don't know if you intentionally like to have a couple of feeling out rounds or not, but Okolie would appear to be on a higher level than those guys. So my question is, can you afford to start slow against Lawrence Okolie?
I don't think he's starting slow. In what you're saying, I heard someone else make the same comment. I was just gauging, judging.
Feeling out, basically.
Well, no, you could say feeling out, but is understanding a man's distance and timing, you know, over a 12-round fight, I'm not going to cry over the first round. You know, I want to win the first round. Let's go back to the Robin Dupree fight. He started quite fast.
Yeah, he did, yeah.
You know, he come out, guns flying, like, boom, straight out the gates, out the blocks. And I thought, all right, cool, let me see what you're doing. Let me see where you're at. Lawrence, I don't think he's going to start that way. We have respect for each other as a fighter. Actually, do you know what? Forgive me, I don't know how Lawrence is going to start. I'll take that comment back because he can start however he wants to start. You may see it as me starting slow. I don't see it as that. So no further comment on that, I'm afraid.
No, I mean, listen, it's not a knock to your game. Like I say, you've done well in both of those fights. You've remained undefeated, of course, and they weren't really important rounds in the grand scheme of things. It's just, you know, it's just an angle on it. You mentioned there
of course.
You mentioned there about 12-round fights. This will be your third 12-rounder, even though you've never actually needed to go the 12, of course. But Lawrence, this is his first 12-rounder. Who do you believe the 12-round suits best, if anybody?
Well, Lawrence done the 10 comfortable.
Yeah.
I believe he could do I believe he could do the 12 comfortable. Can he do the 12 with me in front of him? We will find out. There's things in a man's brain, you know, psychologically, knowing something, having done it, and I've done it under the lights. You know, that stone has been turned for me. Lawrence is still yet to do that. That will be something in the back of his mind. Whether he likes it or not, that will be on his mind. Oh, I haven't yet to do 12 rounds as a professional. But these are the steps that people take. And he was always going to be taking this step into a 12-round fight, and it's just good it's with me.
And I know that you've not ducked anybody and you've wanted these big fights, but was Okolie at the top of your hit list, so to speak, or would you have preferred to try and get your hands on the British, because obviously that looks beautiful next to the Commonwealth? Was he your main man, or, you know, was there just a bunch of guys and he was just one of them, so to speak? Lawrence
was one of them. Matty Askins was another. And you know how this game works. Sometimes, even though two fighters want to fight, sometimes it just can't happen. And as a professional, I'm starting to learn these things and figure this out, that sometimes it's not always as easy as just to make a fight. Let's take AJ and Wilder, for example, at the moment. They both want to fight, but it's just not as easy sometimes. But Lawrence was definitely on the list. Askins was on the list. For different reasons. They both present different reasons for why I wanted to fight either one of them. And it was just Lawrence was happy and I was happy, and it was easier to get made.
Yeah, and credit to you both for taking the fight at this stage. It's still relatively early on in both of your careers. I actually remember you, Luke, being a part of George Groves' team. I remember this light-skinned guy with shorter hair than what we see these days on top of your head. And I do remember the big beard. And then all of a sudden, you turned pro. I don't think you were pro at the time. And I saw you boxing once, and I was like, hang on a minute, that's that guy. I don't even think I knew that you were a boxer at the time. But for the early part of your career, obviously you were managed by George Groves. What was that like?
Yeah, that's cool. George did the job on paper. Paddy was pulling the strings behind closed doors. But being Paddy working with George gave me access to different things that I may not have had as easy access to because George had access to. So it was good. I enjoyed being around him. I get to go to the big shows. I got to see what it was really about and what I was really in for. Just on that, I remember about 3 years ago, I went to Sky Sports Studio with George, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I can't remember exactly how long ago. And I was there with him for the day, and I spent the day with him just watching him, just learning how things get done and what you get up to, because these are the things as a young professional you want to know. You want to know, that's what they're doing. And I had the privilege today to go to Sky Sports for myself and do all that again, but for myself.
Yeah, brilliant, man, brilliant. And I know that you've also travelled for good sparring on many occasions. I know that you've been out to Poland and sparred a couple of former champions out there, including Krzysztof Glowacki. I know that you've sparred Tony Bellew. I know that you've sparred Frank Buglioni. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. Who are some of the other names that you've sparred over the years, and who was the best fighter that you'd ever sparred, Luke? I
don't want to say the best fighter, but reason being they all present themselves with great attributes themselves. And that's stylistically, that's why there's so many good fights out there. But a couple of other names: Tyson Fury, Hughie Fury, Enzo Maccarinelli, Krzysztof Wladacek. He was in the World Boxing Super Series when I was in Poland sparring with Krzysztof Glowacki. They're in the same gym, so I had the privilege to spar with him. Michael Sprott back in the day, Nathan Cleverly. It's good guys. I've been very fortunate to spar with some good guys.
And this was a question I almost was going to forget to ask you, to be honest. If we do see an announcement soon, the two men that deserve to certainly be in the World Boxing Super Series final, the Cruiserweight division, Usyk versus Gassiev, who do you favour in that showdown?
Usyk. I pick Usyk. Yeah, I like his style to beat Gassiev. I think Gassiev is great. In that fight, I pick Usyk's style to beat Gassiev, but I really do prefer the fighting style of Gassiev.
Credit to both guys once again. It's a fight where I wouldn't be surprised of any outcome, to be honest. I think they've both proved.
No, do you know what? I agree with you. I completely agree with you on that.
Yeah. And finally, the final real question I've got for you, Luke, should you choose to divulge it, do you have any kind of prediction of how on June the 6th, on that Wednesday night in York Hall, you will have your hand raised against Lawrence Okolie?
In fashion. I will win in fashion.
Can I poke you a little bit to say?
I'll just leave it as I'll win in fashion.
In fashion. I like that. And finally, Luke, just before I let you go, what is your message to any of your fans that may be listening to this?
What's up, guys? Thank you for following me and watching my journey and my progress. I really appreciate the support I get and the love I receive over social media. Just keep on watching, keep on supporting. I appreciate you all very much. Thank you to my sponsors and people that have always purchased tickets along the way. We are coming into the bigger and better fights, and these are the places and the place I want to go for you people to see me. So thank you ever so much.
Very well said. All right, listen, Luke, it's been my pleasure, my friend, speaking with you this week. Thank you for your time. Best of luck for June 6th, and we'll catch up sometime after, I'm sure.
Thank you ever so much for your time. I appreciate the call. Take care.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. This part, of course, the news part. Ayaz, what have you got for us?
So today's biggest news is that the World Boxing Super Series will have a bantamweight division. So far, 3 fighters have been announced: Ryan Burnett, Emmanuel Rodriguez, and Zolani Tete.
Yeah, obviously there's going to be 8 men in this tournament. I am kind of scratching my head at who the other guys are going to be. They're talking about Jamie McDonnell, they're talking about Inoue. Those guys are fighting each other on May 25th, so I think depending on, who wins and how they win, they'll probably be in it. But I don't I don't think the loser's going to be in it, but people are talking about those two, which I just find kind of weird. Because imagine, I really hope this doesn't happen, but imagine Inoue knocks Jamie McDonald out in a round. Are people going to want Jamie McDonald to be in that? Should he probably move up to super bantamweight if that did happen? Yes, I think so. So I don't think the loser is going to be in that tournament, to be honest. So that is just one other name, which will make 4. But anyway, I like what they're doing. They've got the WBA Super Champ. They've got the WBO Champ, and of course they've got the newly crowned IBF Champ, Emmanuel Rodriguez. Like we mentioned earlier in part 1, completely easily beat Paul Butler. What a fantastic 7 days he's had. He's come over to the UK, done a right job on a former world champion, picked up a belt, even though the guy didn't make weight, picked up a belt, and now he's signed up for this multi-million-pound tournament. So unbelievable how he's just gone from like zero to hero kind of thing. Credit to him. But yeah, big news. I'm looking forward to it, Ayaz. I'm happy that Burnett's in it. I'm happy that Zolani Tete's in it. I just really pray to God that those two end up fighting each other at some point. I just would love to see that happen. Obviously, Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn, they'd have to both go there as well. Could you imagine them both in the same ring, in their fighter's corner? Oh man, I really hope it happens. So that'd be beautiful. But yeah, what else you got for us?
Kovalev will defend his WBO light heavyweight title against Alida Alvarez on August the 4th.
Yes, that's a good fight there. Alida Alvarez has been, I believe, the mandatory for the WBC title against Adonis Stevenson for a long, long time, and Stevenson, I think, keeps paying him step-aside money. So I don't know what's gone on there, but he's decided to go another route. He's now taking on Kovalev, and if Kovalev does a great job on him, which, by the way, he's a really good fighter, so it's no given, that fight there. But if he does a real good job on him, then that is certainly a big statement in the light heavyweight division. So I'm looking forward to that one, and I give Kovalev credit for taking that fight. He's now going to be fighting a man that he looked like Adonis Stevenson wanted to avoid.
Nicola Adams will face former 3-time world title challenger Soledad Valfrias on May 19th.
Yeah, obviously these big fights need to happen and happen quite quickly for Nicola Adams. I'm a fan of her, like I've said many, many times. And, I'm happy that she's fighting someone who's fought at world level before, so hopefully she can do a great job on that girl there and, do something that some of the champions couldn't do.
Nathan Gorman will fight Sean Turner.
Yes, Nathan Gorman, obviously, the Ricky Hatton fighter, he's signed with Frank Warren, and he's going to be fighting on Tyson Fury's comeback, his comeback undercard on June the 9th. He's going to be taking on big sexy Sean Turner, so that's a fantastic fight there. Nathan Gorman 12-0 with 10 knockouts, Sean Turner 12-2 with 8 knockouts. His 2 losses, especially the most recent one against real good opposition, and he certainly comes to give it a go, so that one I'm really expecting fireworks for.
Daniel Dubois will face Tom Little for the English heavyweight title on June 23rd.
Yeah, that one's going to be at the O2. That's going to be on Billy Joe Saunders' undercard. That, again, is another great fight. I think Tom Little and big sexy Sean Turner, they're both kind of like, I want to kind of say in the same boat. I've always kind of got them confused a little bit over the years. They're like, it's probably doing a disservice, really, to big sexy Sean Turner. I think he's probably the better of the two fighters. But, yeah, it's good that they're both getting big fights, to be honest, because they have proved time and time again that they'll fight anybody, and they can talk really well as well. So they're quite good in terms of self-promotion. So hopefully we see some good back and forth on social media and at the press conferences, and hopefully the fights play out to be quite good, because we know these opponents rather than some of the guys that have fought these two guys recently in Dubois and Gorman. So yeah, I like those two fights there. Also on that same night, Ayaz, we're going to see O'Hara Davies take on Josh Lever, which I think is another brilliant fight. Josh Lever, we've seen, in a real war against Glenn Foote, where he came through that one. A real war that fight was. Josh Lever 13-0 with 6 knockouts. O'Hara Davies 16-1 with 13 knockouts. I believe that's a brilliant fight. I'm happy because O'Hara Davies is getting thrown straight into a big test fight in his first fight with Frank Warren. I think it's his first fight. I think he might be... he's fighting, I think, either this weekend or the following weekend. I think it's the following weekend at Leeds. I think he's on a bill there. I think he's on the Warrington Selby bill, just in like a keep busy fight. But yeah, I mean, I'm happy about that. Straight away, not his first fight, but literally within a few weeks of his first fight, he's fighting in a real test with Frank Warren. So it seems like Frank Warren's not going to mess around with him.
That's it for the news.
Okay, thank you very much, Ayaz. Moving over now to the preview part of the show. We're going to start at the Sam's Town Hotel and Gambling Hall in Las Vegas, Nevada. A couple fights to mention over here. Andrew Tabiti, 15-0, takes on Latif Coyote, 21-2 in the 10-round fight. That's going to be really, really good. This is a Mayweather Promotions card. It's going to be shown on Bounce TV in the US. But the main event here, two friends of the shows that were both on. One was on last week and the other one was on the week before. In one corner, Tony Harrison, 26-2. He takes on Ishe Smith in a 10-rounder, 29-9. Ishe Smith. A fight there where obviously we've been really interested in both guys. They're two friends of the show now. Ishe's been on a couple times. Tony Harrison was on last week for the first time. It's certainly a crossroads fight because both men are at different parts of their careers. Tony Harrison looking to get another shot at a title. Same for Ishe Smith, a former title holder himself. All the very best to both men there. Leonard Ellaby was quote tweeting a lot of our tweets about the fight and stuff like that, very firmly backing his man Ishe Smith, so I'm really quite amped up for that one. Moving over now though to the 2300 Arena in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. One or two fights to mention over here. Friend of the show once again, Henry Lundy, 29-6 with one draw. He's in a 8-round fight against an opponent that is yet to be confirmed. Also on this bill here, Devin Haney, 18-0, fights for the USBA Lightweight title against Mason Menard, 33-2. That's another big step up for Devin Haney, the man that they're all talking about in the States. That one's going to be shown on Showtime as well. Moving over now to Germany, Avni Yildirim, 18-1, takes on Ryan Ford, 14-2. Ryan Ford, he's again the guy that was supposed to take on Anthony Yard, but he did end up taking on, I think it was Fedor Chudanov, not Dmitry, and he lost last time out to him, if I'm not mistaken. I think he's also coming off of 2 losses in a row now, and he's taken on Avni Yildirim in Germany. That one's for the WBC International Super Middleweight title. Avni Yildirim, a man that, of course, had his O taken in the first round of the World Boxing Super Series against Chris Eubank Jr. That's a 12-round contest there. Moving over now to Latvia, though, a bill over here where we have to mention a main event fight. In fact, I'm going to start with the undercard here. Our own UK's finest, Luther Clay. I really like that name, Luther Clay. I think he follows us on Twitter. A great name. I really like his name, to be honest. Oh, you know him?
Yes.
Yeah, well, he's on the bill. He's in an 8-rounder against Jean-Pierre Habimana, 9-12 with 3 draws. Luther Clay, 7-1. Is he local to you then?
I know him, but I got him on Facebook and I've interviewed him before as part of my paper.
Oh, okay. For those that may not know, Ayaz by day works for a newspaper. We'll give a little plug there to the Echo. Also on this bill, Artur Akavov, that's the man that we saw challenge Billy Joe Saunders for his title, and it was a real close fight. Well, anyway, Akavov, 18-2, takes on Gonzalo Correa, 12-1. It's for the vacant WBO International Middleweight title. So Akavov still trying to climb those WBO rankings for a rematch. But the main event here, Ismail Iliev, 10-0 with 1 draw, fights for the vacant Eurasian Boxing Parliament Super Welterweight title and the vacant WBO International Super Welterweight title against Konstantin Ponomarev, who has a record of 33-0. I believe he's from the Ukraine. He's a guy that really needs to step it up because he's actually supposed to be a brilliant fighter, and he's almost got one of the longest undefeated streaks in boxing, but he just hasn't fought many names. But that one is a Al Siesta Promotions card in Latvia at the Arena Riga. Moving over now to Poland, Krzysztof Glowacki, 29-1, takes on Santander Silgado, 28-4. That one will be a 10-round contest there. Former WBO World Champion Glowacki, a good fighter he was, until he lost to Alexander Usyk in a great fight. Moving over now to the Bolton Whites Hotel in Bolton, Lancashire, United Kingdom. This is a Hennessy Sports card. It's going to be shown on Channel 5 this Saturday. What do we have here? Yusuf Safa, 7-0. He's a guy that's been with Hennessy, I think, since his pro debut, but he's been dangerously inactive. I think he's from South London somewhere, if I'm not mistaken, or from Kent. He's definitely from the south. And yeah, he has just been really, really inactive, and he's actually a good fighter. I'd like to see him get more exposure, if you like. I've seen him a couple times, fight live and stuff, but his career's just been such a slow one. He's been so inactive. I think he's been a pro for like 4 or 5 years, and he's only had 7 fights, so I'm not really too pleased about that. But also on this bill, Savannah Marshall, 1-0. Her opponent yet to be announced. She's actually having 8 3-minute rounds in her fight there, so I'm happy to see her do the 3 minutes. She's now with Peter Fury. Remember, she was signed by Floyd Mayweather. She made her debut on Floyd Mayweather against Conor McGregor on the undercard there. I'm not sure if she's still with Floyd as a promoter, but she's being trained now by Peter Fury, and she's on this bill here in Bolton. Also on the bill, Reece Cartwright, 20-1 with his IBF youth middleweight title. His opponent yet to be announced. That's a 10-rounder there. Peter McDonough gets back in the ring. He was suspended for a while. I think the ban was lifted. His record 28-28 with 1 draw. His opponent yet to be announced. That's a 10-rounder there. Sam Sexton, 24-3, puts his British heavyweight title on the line against Hughie Fury, 20-1. A 12-round contest there, Ayaz. That is one that we've gone on Twitter and asked the listeners about. So I'm going to ask you as well. Sam Sexton defending his British heavyweight title. Hughie Fury coming off that loss, the very controversial loss to Joseph Parker a few months back now, though. Who do you favour in that one, and how does the man you favour win?
In my opinion, I'm going to go for Hughie Fury wins on points.
Okay, the listeners have gone with let me just get this right, a Fury points win as well. Do you know what? I'm trying to go against both of you because I need to try and get my points up. Sam Sexton, though, I haven't seen him fight for quite a while now. I mean, obviously Hughie Fury is still on the up, if you like. Sam Sexton, I mean, of his 3 losses, he's been knocked out all 3 times. Once by David Price back in 2012, once by Derek Chisora back in 2010, and once again by Derek Chisora back in 2008. So for me, I'm going to go with a Hughie Fury knockout. I'm going to go against the grain and try and get a point there. So yeah, Fury on points for you, Fury on points for the listeners. Moving over now, though, to the Madison Square Garden in New York, USA. This one is going to be shown on ESPN in the States. It's also going to be shown on Box Nation here in the UK. It's for the WBA World Lightweight title. The champion, Jorge Linares, 44-3, takes on Vasyl Lomachenko, moving up in weight. 10-1 Lomachenko has 4 of his last 4 opponents have all quit on their stall, if I'm not mistaken. What a fight this is going to be. Talk to me about the fight, but also tell me who you believe is going to win and how.
Well, I think this is a fight that I think is going to be, yeah.
It's a super fight.
It's a super fight, a brilliant fight. I think with Linares, I don't know who he's training with. That's the thing.
Neither do I.
As he doesn't have Ismail Salas in his coach as his coach anymore. It's going to be a very tricky fight for Linares. I personally think Lomachenko is going to toy him around, and I think Lomachenko is going to win by points. I think Lomachenko's, in my opinion, is a pound for pound number 1.
Well, the listeners have also gone with a points win for Lomachenko. Linares, I mean, he's lost 3 times. Every time he's lost, it's been by stoppage. The only thing that I'm unsure about is the fact that Lomachenko obviously hasn't fought at lightweight yet. And Linares is not, he's not the kind of guy that's going to stand and trade with you. He's very good with his movement as well. And he's also been looking really good. I've seen a couple of his training videos. He always looks really good when he's training, to be honest. It's nothing new from him. But this is going to be... Is this his 3rd weight class, Lomachenko, if he wins? Or is it his 4th one? I'm losing count now. He won the featherweight title, didn't he, against Gary Russell Jr. And then he fought... Who did he fight? It was Roman Martinez for the super featherweight. And this one is the lightweight, isn't it? Yeah, so this is his 3rd... His 3rd weight class, so hoping to get a 3rd title in 3 weight classes inside 12 fights. That's just insane, man. Just purely to go against you both, I'm gonna go with a Lomachenko win by knockout, but I'm not that confident of it, and I may be kicking myself because my heart tells me that, or my head I think tells me that that Lomachenko won't be able to stop Linares, but I just need to try and gather some points together. So I'm going to go against the grain once again there and go with a Lomachenko knockout. What I will say is it was the second most popular choice, a Lomachenko knockout. 30% going with that, 40% going with Lomachenko on points. So it's still relatively close. So I'm a little bit confident now. So hopefully for me, Lomachenko gets that one on points. But it's just an absolute super fight. It really is. I just want to see it really getting the recognition that it deserves, because it's gone under the radar because both men don't really speak English or anything, so they're not the most marketable household names over here, so it's a bit of a shame. But it is truly one of the fights of 2018, undoubtedly. And also on the undercard there, I should mention, friend of the show, Jamel Herring. He was, of course, on the show a few weeks ago, talking about his fight, so he's on that one. It's his first fight with Top Rank. I'm really pleased for him. Is there anything else on that undercard? Yeah, I should say Jamel Herring's taken on Juan Pablo Sanchez. We spoke about that fight. That's an 8-rounder there. Also, Michael Conlon in his 7th pro outing. He's in an 8-rounder against Ibon Larinaga, who's 10-1. Yeah, that's about it for that one. Moving over now to the Turning Stone Resort and Casino. This one's going to be shown on HBO in New York. I don't think it's going to be getting shown in the UK. 2 fights to mention on this bill. Ray Vargas, 31-0, defends his WBC World Super Bantamweight title against Azat Hovhannissian, 14-2. Ray Vargas, as we were very impressed when he came over here and took on Gavin McDonnell. He's a real big guy for the super bantamweight division. He really is. I don't know how he makes the weight. He's a great boxer. He's also shown us, a lot of power and stuff like that. But his opponent here, I'm not too pleased with, to be honest with you. His record doesn't look great, I suppose, 14-2. He has had tough opposition though, and his 2 losses were quite controversial. One was on his pro debut and one was a majority decision over 6 rounds. He got dropped in that fight, and that was, that made the difference there. But aside from that, he's put on an unbeaten streak really since July of 2015. He's fought some good names along the way, but nothing on this level. So, all the best to him, but I think Ray Vargas will comfortably beat him. And the main event here, Saddam Ali, 26-1, puts his WBO World Super Welterweight title on the line. It was supposed to be Liam Smith in the other corner, but of course an illness saw him pull out, and he's been replaced by Jamie Munguia, who is 28-0. I think that's how it's said. Jamie Munguia, 28-0 with 24 knockouts, but relatively unknown. This is, of course, Saddam Ali's first defense of the title since winning it from Miguel Cotto in a huge upset. Ayaz, what's your thoughts on that fight, Saddam Ali? I know we don't know too much about his opponent, but you happy to see him out again? And how do you think he wins? I think we went to the predictions on this, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, we did. The listeners have gone with Saddam Ali on points.
I don't know much about his opponents, but if I'm going to go Saddam Ali in points.
Yeah, I think that's probably the safe bet. I am not going to be too courageous and go against you both here. I think Saddam Ali probably wins it on points. Yeah, I think so. It's one of those fights where this guy may be a really good fighter. He's only 21. Obviously, like I say, he can punch a bit. He's a Mexican fighter, but the level of opponent hasn't been that bad, to be honest. A couple of his last fights, he's been knocking people out where he probably shouldn't have been able to get the knockout. He's coming off of 5 straight knockouts, all within 3 rounds. So I suppose that sounds quite good. But like I say, no one on Saddam Ali's level, so I'm going to go with Saddam Ali. It wouldn't surprise me if he stopped this guy, because it's this guy's biggest fight. But yeah, Saddam Ali is certainly the favourite in that one. And that really wraps up the previewing. I didn't realise that was the last fight to mention there. So that wraps up the previewing. Just before we wrap up part 2, there is of course one last thing to do. Once again, I'm sure you know what that is. It's to bring in our second and final guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the WBO Lightweight Champion of the World, Mr. Raymundo Beltran. Ray, welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey, how you doing? Thank you for having me on your show.
Hey, it's my pleasure, my friend. I'm very well. So, Ray, obviously it's the first time that you've been on this show. I'd like to go back to a couple of your previous attempts at a world title, most notably that night in Glasgow back in September 2013. For those that may not remember, Ray, of course, challenged Ricky Burns for the WBO title, managed to break Ricky Burns' jaw in, I believe, the second round. And in many people's eyes, Beltran certainly deserved the decision that night, but to everybody's surprise, it ended in a split draw. Even some of Ricky Burns' biggest fans didn't agree with that outcome. But tell us, Ray, what do you remember most about that night back in 2013?
Well, it was kind of a painful night, but at the same time, it was I think it kind of helped me, I think I gained more fans, even getting a draw than just winning, because I think the fans saw that it wasn't fair. Everybody talk about it, makes my name even bigger. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, certainly. But no, it was a good fight. So you'd say that was probably like a bit of a learning fight, do you want to say?
Yeah, it was a learning fight, I think it was also a good, like a good introduction for me to the boxing world and the world, in the world class level. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he's made a statement that I belong here, and even before I was just like an opponent, Yeah, then I proved myself, that I belong at that world class level,
Yeah, you certainly did prove yourself. And of course, once again, after the bizarre draw, you tried to chase the WBO belt again, but at that point, Terence Crawford held the title after pretty much wiping the floor with Ricky Burns in Glasgow. Crawford, of course, took the belt back to Omaha, Nebraska, and that's exactly where you had to visit to make your second attempt at the world title. What do you remember from that one, Ray? Terence, of course, being one of the top fighters in the world today.
Well, it was a very difficult fight. I think Crawford's very, very smart fighter, you know what I mean? It was a good experience, I didn't feel like I was lost, when you feel like you completely dominated. I felt more like it was a step ahead of me. A step ahead of him, I was like close, but at the same time, he did use enough, to win the rounds, I mean, not use enough. He dominated good, but I'm saying like I felt like he was just a step ahead of me, not like I didn't feel lost, I missed him by this little bit, from the good shots, stuff like that.
Yeah, no, a phenomenal fighter he's turned out to be. And obviously the following year, your third attempt at a world title, once again the WBO title. This was your 2015 shot after the loss in 2014 and the crazy draw in 2013. This time it was against Takahiro Ao. You unfortunately missed the weight by just half a pound, meaning that the title was only on the line for Takahiro. You managed to win, though, by a TKO in round 2, but that decision was later overturned due to a doping violation. Now, I must be honest, Ray, I have no idea what actually happened in that case, because in the UK there wasn't too much talk about it at the time. But please explain to us what actually went wrong there from missing the weight and then, of course, fouling some kind of doping test.
You know what? I did. I went to a very hard training camp. You know what I mean? My coach that I had back then, we used to train I think we did too hard. You know what I mean? And weights and stuff like that. And I gained muscle. Muscle's way heavier, than fat. And I was having a hard time to lose weight. So, and the thing about the doping, I had a nutritionist that I worked with for 8 years, So, he gave me this supplement. It's supposed to help me lose weight, which I didn't know what it was, I'm being honest, I didn't know what I was taking. I just trusted me because I was with him for years already. And I just did whatever he told me to do. And never thought it was going to be a steroid, you know what I mean? And that's what happened, instead of, I used it to lose weight, not for performance, you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
But I didn't even make weight either, anyways, So after I got a call, from the Nevada Commission that I needed an attorney, because I came out positive with steroids. I'm like, what? So then I did my research, and I didn't know. I asked what I was using and what I was taking. It was just completely stupid from him to give me that, because then I realized what it was and how that works and what it does, So like I tell you, if I knew what it was before, before I use it, I wouldn't even use it, because it was just stupid, The way I use it, the way they give it to me, it was just dumb, That substance, what I read, it lasts like 2 months in your body, It lasts 2 years in your, 2 months in your body. And then when I took it, I took it like a month before the fight to lose weight. So, it was just so stupid. I didn't know what it was. Like I said, you as a boxer, you hire your nutritionist, you hire your manager, you hire your trainers. So you trust them, that way you have your team, you trust them what they do, So that was my responsibility and my problem, that my mistake was that I trust in what he was doing. And I just believe him, and I didn't think he was something wrong, and I get in trouble, But one thing I can tell everybody, he wasn't conscious, and I didn't do it in a conscious way. It wasn't about intentions. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, completely. We see this time and time again where, boxers will take something without really even researching, because there's so many different things on the list that you're not allowed, that I think even if you asked any boxer, what are you not allowed, they don't know off the top of their head. They've got to go and check. And if you've got somebody in place to do this for you and they don't do their job, then you suffer, of course, but it's not really your fault. I know, it's quite a bad thing, but yeah, leaving that in the past anyway. At this point, obviously, you had a world title shot in 2013, 2014, and 2015. All 3 times you came out of the fight without the belt. At this point, you were 33, I think. Almost 34 after that fight there against Takahiro. And I want to ask you, Ray, after that 3rd world title fight not ending well for you, did you perhaps think at that point that maybe you'd missed your opportunity to become a world champion?
Well, it went through my head, I'm not going to lie to you. It went through my head a lot, and I didn't know what was going to happen. But as long as I knew that as long as I could fight, all I had to do is keep winning, And that would take me to a world title again, I just couldn't give up before time, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just couldn't let my mind just put limits on my head, Like, hey, you know what? I can still fight. As long as I know I can still compete, and I knew I can beat some of the world champions. I gotta keep fighting,
Yeah, your motivation certainly didn't go. And in the period after that fight there, obviously after the Takahiro fight, you put together a nice string of victories, most of them by big knockouts. But more importantly, you encountered some trouble outside of the ring in terms of your citizenship and your likeliness of being granted a green card, I believe. How did that situation come around, Ray?
Well, you know what? Because I've been here with a visa, with a working visa, and I've been here for a lot of years, and it's very important for me to get my green card, because my family is here. My kids are born here. I got all my life here in the United States. So I've been also fighting because I need to get my my green card. That's the hope, for me and my family. And fighting was to keep winning is it just gave me, it allowed me to prove that to the federal, government that I'm an extraordinary athlete, So now that we won the title, that proves that, completely prove that we got extraordinary abilities. So, and we did it, So we now just still in the process. We are working on it, and hopefully we get it soon.
Yeah, I hope so as well. But I don't really exactly understand how the immigration process works in America. But on the TV in the UK, whenever I'm watching you fight, the commentators over here, they say they've said it more than one time now that you've literally been fighting for your citizenship. And Is it actually true? And if so, how can the outcome of a fight determine your right to remain in the United States? It sounds crazy.
Yeah, it is true because, like I said, the government, I need to keep winning to prove them that I'm an athlete with extraordinary abilities. It doesn't take years to be a boxer. No, you have to stay on top of the game, for a minimum amount of time for them. You know what I mean? I got to stay on the top, for a certain amount of time. It's not just like fight for a world title and then go back down for them. It doesn't count. You got to stay on top of it, for a certain amount of years.
Wow, that's crazy, man.
Yeah, so they really they see me, so they can approve me.
Yeah, it just sounds so crazy because whenever they say it, whenever the commentators say it, you fight really well. Every time when your green card, if you like, has been on the line, you fight excellently well. It's a great motivation in some ways. But getting back to what's happening with you now, it finally happened, Ray. February 16th, 2018, once again for the WBO Lightweight World title. In the other corner was Paulus Moses, a former two-time world champion. No, was it two-time or one-time world champion? I think one-time world champion.
I think he was one time.
Yeah, I think he was a one-time world champion. But he was a very experienced guy. He was tough, but you were able to unanimously beat him over 12 rounds and finally achieve your boyhood dream. How good did it feel finally, to get your hands on a world title? And tell us how the fight went in your own words, Ray.
Well, you know what? All I can tell you is a dream come true. Almost accomplished all my dreams. To this point of my life. Everything that I want in life. It's almost done. I wanted to be a world champion. I'm a world champion. I wanted to buy a nice house for my family. Now I wanted to get a green card. We're still in the process. We haven't get it yet, but everything's looking good. Whatever we get from now to whatever we get from now and on, it's just extra.
Yeah. But how did the fight go in your words? What did you make of Moses as an opponent?
You know what? The fight was very tough, and I made some mistakes, and I think he won some rounds because I made the mistake, of kind of like step off the gas, But once I was in front of him and just pushing him back, I always control him, you know what I mean? But I let him take momentum, and that's the rounds that I lose, So I made that mistake, I know, in fact, that if I didn't do that, I would have win like every round,
Yeah, I mean, you won comfortably.
And then I realized, that you don't have to push back again. So that's how we ended the fight the last 3-4 rounds. We finished hard, That's how we get the decision.
Yeah, it was like a fight, like you say. You started really well, and then he kind of came back in the middle rounds, and then you finished really well. So a brilliant win. Do you know at this point when you're going to be fighting next at all, Ray?
Well, I'm waiting. I'm negotiating. I still didn't see what happened. It's a big fight on the horizon for me. I might fight. It's a possibility that I fight Lomachenko once if he wins, or Mikey Garcia, So those are the fights that we need, the big fights for us and very attractive to us,
So, because I was going to ask you if you were looking at maybe taking on, like a good challenger, but it looks like you want to unify your world titles. Is that right?
Yeah, I want to get a challenger, but also I want to get the big fights, I want to fight the big guys, improve myself,
Okay. I don't want to put you on the spot. Obviously, there's a huge fight this weekend that I want to talk about in just a moment. But obviously, you've got at the moment Linares. Whoever wins out of his fight against Lomachenko will, they'll hold the WBA title. The WBC right now is with Mikey Garcia, and of course the IBF with Robert Easter Jr. Is there anyone in particular out of all those guys that you want most?
Everybody's a champion, it's very attractive to me. But the biggest names is Linares, Garcia, and Lomachenko, you know.
Yeah.
But, you know, Robles is a very tough champion, too, you know. I got nothing but respect for him, too. But it's more attractive, you know, for me to fight one of those guys, you know.
Yeah, for sure. Now, it seems like a long time ago that you were with Freddie Roach for a while. Freddie's a man that gets a lot of plaudits for his training methods, for his techniques, for his success. What was it like working with him back in the day, Ray?
Well, Freddie is a very smart trainer, you know. He's really, really works on the... He's very smart, you know. He knows what to tell you when you're in the ring and what to do to win the fight. And he told you exactly what punch you need to throw, you know, to land it, you know what I mean? And it was a great experience, you know. I wish we could train together for longer, you know, but it was too busy, you know, training with the big champions, you know, back then, you know, Manny Pacquiao, Amir Khan, you know, and all the champions they had. So we couldn't keep working together. They were just too busy, you know. I needed somebody that gave me more time.
Yeah, it's a shame that happens a lot to fighters. Like you say there, when you were training with Freddie, you were in the gym with the likes of Manny Pacquiao. I know that you had many rounds in the gym with him sparring. I'm guessing that you probably sparred Amir Khan as well. What was it like to spar Manny Pacquiao, and was he the best fighter that you'd ever sparred with, or is there somebody different that I don't know about?
Manny Pacquiao, you know, I think the hardest sparring, the hardest fight of my boxing career. The training with him is way harder than a fight.
Wow.
It's been like so intense, you know, very, very, very intense. You can't get comfortable in not even a second, you know. It's always make you work all the time, you know. It was a good experience, you know, like almost 10 years working together. It's a dream come true to me as well.
And I'm
guessing training with one of the greatest.
Yeah, for sure. Certainly of this era. And did you ever spar Amir Khan? If you did, I'd like to ask you, who did have the quicker hands?
You know what? They were both very quick, you know, just different styles. But Amir was very fast, you know, very, very quick, you know, but Manny was more intense. His intensity was every time, every round was more intense, over and over, more and more. You know what I mean? You keep up the intensity.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, he can overwhelm. He can overwhelm you a little.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Manny was just something else.
And coming
Amir,
down to...
you know, Amir's a great fighter as well, you know. But I mean, I think I have better days with Amir than I did with Pacquiao.
And
yeah, but I mean, nothing but respect to Amir as a great champion. You know what I mean? I can't say anything bad about him, you know, because he was no bad, you know, nothing bad to say about him. You know, he's a great fighter, so he's a great experience, a very, very tough guy, you know, as well. Very, very, very tough.
Yeah, he's a good guy as well outside of the ring. I want to ask you also, Ray, have you sparred any other great fighters over the years that I haven't mentioned just there?
I mean, well, the biggest name is, I spar Jorge Linares, I spar Jose Ramirez, you know, and I spar also Sergio Lipinets.
Oh, okay, Sergei Lipinets, yeah, the champion who just lost to Mikey.
Yeah, and I forgot who else, but, you know, been some champions on my list, you know, just forgot about their names. Can't think about it right now.
No, that's fine. And yeah, I wanted to ask you your opinion on the fight this weekend, Lomachenko versus Linares. Obviously, Lomachenko moving up in weight. Who do you believe will win that fight?
You know what? It's a very, to me, I think it's a very even fight. I mean, Lomachenko is very talented, you know. Also, Linares, but Lomachenko, it shows that he doesn't really have that big punch, you know what I mean? But his skills, he's just a lot of skills. But now the question is, how is he going to deal with a lightweight, you know? Because he's been facing the last opponents, they've been way smaller for him, you know? So I don't know. I'm just wondering what, how's he gonna do with Linares. I think this is gonna be a very technical fight because they're both very technical.
Yeah, they certainly are. It's kind of gone under the radar a little bit. It's such a mega fight, but not many people in the UK are talking about it because both guys don't have huge names in the UK, probably because their English is not fantastic. But I'd like to ask this question, Ray, to everybody that we speak to from overseas. Who comes to mind when I ask you, who's your favourite UK fighter of all time? It can be any era. Who would you say is probably your favourite UK fighter to watch ever?
What is that? The guy that fought Jerry McLennan.
Nigel Benn.
Nigel Benn, yeah. That was a tough guy. Very, very tough. I like Nigel Benn. I also like what is his name? Man, I know the guys. Oh man, I know his name. I got the glove here. I got his glove signed by him.
I thought you was gonna say somebody like maybe Prince Nassim Hamed. Everybody says him.
I don't know, man. It was very very controversial, fighter. Very it was tough, but it was a showman, very, very great fighter, but not my type, and I like different style fighters, you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that's fine. I mean,
like Nigel Benn, that, but Nassim, is a great fighter as well. Yeah, I can't take nothing away from him. I can't say even nothing negative about him. It's nothing but he got my respect. Yeah. But it's just not my type of I don't know. Like I like the guys like Maidana. Maidana, the guy from Argentina.
Oh yeah.
I like the type of fighter. Type of fighter that come and get it. You know what I mean? Like, he's gonna come and get it.
Carl Froch was a little bit like that.
Oh, Carl Froch, yeah. Yeah, Carl Froch, another one, yeah. Yeah, you're right. I agree.
Finally, Ray, just before I let you go, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to send out any kind of message to your UK fans. Obviously, when you came over here to take on Ricky Burns, you earned a lot of fans. I'm sure your UK fan base is even bigger now. What's your message to the guys over here that support you?
Well, you know what? And I tell you that from my heart, that when I fought Ricky Burns, maybe that, God plans for everybody. I think I gained way more fans like that with that decision than even actually winning the fight. So I really appreciate that and make me appreciate my fans back in the UK, because they're real fans. They really respect the boxing. And I'm very grateful and thank you, for all the support and always reaching out to me and on the messages on Instagram, even on Facebook. That really means a lot to me. Hopefully someday I can go back over there and put a good show for all my fans back in the UK, and I can please them, and hopefully if I get one of the big fights soon, and I can put a great show to make you proud, what I mean? Thank you, and thank you very much, and God bless everybody in the UK.
Excellent. Very well said. But listen, Ray, it's been an absolute honour interviewing you this week. I thank you for your time. I wish you the best of luck with everything outside of the ring and inside of the ring in the near future, and we will catch up again soon, I'm very sure.
Well, thank you. The honor is mine, and thank you for having me on your show, And again, so my fans know what's going on with me nowadays. And thank you very much.
Okay, and this wraps up episode 134 of the BoxHard Podcast. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Ayaz Sumra has been Ayaz Sumra. A special thank you to our two guests on this week's show, the WBO Lightweight Champion of the World, Mr. Raymundo Beltran, and the Commonwealth Cruiserweight Champion, Mr. Luke the Duke Watkins. The biggest thanks of all, though, goes out to our listeners, the same every single time. Once again, please, if you do have time, remember to leave us a review on iTunes. The Prediction League scores are currently at myself on 33, Ayaz on 38, and you, the listeners, in the lead with 39 points. Best of luck with all of your predictions this weekend, but most importantly, enjoy your weekends, people, and we shall see you all again next week.